I'm recording my memoirs. I never set out to be a shaman. I always thought those people were wacko, you know, people who need help to get from point A to point B. But look, I was on the run. They were after me. We'd hunted down the carbon criminals and the biology criminals and all the others that destroyed the biosphere, the nuclear criminals. And now they were after the people who had hunted down those criminals. War criminals, they called us. That's redundant. I was a crime criminal. I hid out in this little mountain village. There's a story in that. I was in the army. There were lots of armies, and I was mostly in Haller's army. We were all assholes, you know, like any army. Well, we hunted down the carbon criminals anywhere. New Zealand, Alaska. We fought to get near them, and then we killed them. We were one of the few armies that had no truck with any rapist. There was one guy, one of our asshole soldiers was a rapist, and he got caught before he could finish right here in this little village. And I had the reputation of being the guy that killed him. And that reputation was right. So many years later, after everything turned and they were hunting us down, I came here and they welcomed me, because I was the guy that had killed the rapist before he could rape one of their women. That was the best thing I ever did in the war, the best thing. How could it not be? I killed the guy. Best thing. Well, maybe the best thing was when I left. I got out after Haller's army was decimated by the helicopters from the north and the sidewinding land carriage vehicles from the south. God damn it. You know, 8.5 billion people died during the Great Climate Migration. 8.5 billion. Very few of us made it through. But I did. I hid out in this village. I ended up working for food, for the old medicine man, Fernando. I was sweeping up, running supplies, you know, like that, playing dumb. I watched this guy. He'd go into a trance. Sometimes it took hours. Man, he'd come out of this trance with stories from the invisible world. Man, all kinds of shit. They had guides, spirits, forces, astral projections, tornadoes. They had invisible world weather. This guy had adventures. And people took his stories as wisdom. I thought to myself, this is a good gig. There's no way anybody can check. So I started doing a few of the mystic trances myself. Some chanting, some smoke, some drugs for the crowd, a little hocus pocus. I got some results too. Some cures, one curse lifted, one marriage maybe repaired. Placebo effect. And one day I'm in my trance, I'm counting my breaths, I'm peeking out at the crowd to see if it needs a jolt, and all of a sudden I'm like unconscious, more like frozen. Everything is black. And then out of the blackness comes the face of the medicine man. He's looking at me. He's very angry. He grabs me by the throat and he says, "Stop playing games. This is your last warning." He flings me to the ground. Apparently it took hours. I came out of my trance and my throat was on fire. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't speak. It hurt like anything. And they brought me to bed, and then they called the medicine man. That old fart sat by my bed and gave me spoons of water and laughed when I tried to make sounds. I was convinced he was just setting me up to kill me. And he took me outside one day and built a fire and said, "Fire is your element." So I watched that fire for 3 days. Then he took me inside and sat me down at the table, gave me some coffee, like nothing had happened. And he said, "When you've finished, go gather sage." So I became his apprentice, old Fernando's apprentice. The beginning of my real life. Well, Fernando was a real mystical shaman. He told me he'd had a vision of me before he'd ever met me. There was a condor came flying toward him on the mountainside, and then all of a sudden it transformed into a raggedy, stupid soldier. So he thought that was me. He taught me I had a hard head and I have a tendency to lie, so he had to work pretty hard. But it turned out that all the villagers were pantheists, animists, you know, everything is alive. They wouldn't let me work at first. Don't pick up that rock. Okay. They were building, what do you call those? Terraforms on the side of the mountain, horizontal to try to get land. They had topsoil, they brought water. They lifted the plants up and planted them very carefully. And they even stayed up all night shielding them to get them started. Indigenous knowledge is environmental knowledge stored in rocks and the plants and the animals and the winds and the waters of a place. We had lost our jungle. Jungle had dried up. It just became one big Amazon desert, millions of square miles. So if you're a pantheist and you're next to a desert that used to be a jungle, what is it trying to tell you? It's telling you, you better move. So they moved their jungle up the side of the mountain. They needed their sacred plants, the plants and the environment the plant was growing in up the side of the mountain. Now we've gotten so high, nobody can find us. Disappeared into the mist. People evolved during this process under the pressure of survival. Now we sing our conversations, we dance our construction projects, we salute whenever we quaff our thirst with the rainwater we saved from last year. People here are pretty, I guess, worshipful. Everything in this moment-to-moment life is a wonder. People are grateful to be alive. Just about every moment is meaningful. Some are deeply meaningful. Well, I guess I really don't want to tell any more war stories. But I'll open a door and see what comes through. Hi, cow, cow, honey, cow. These words were made in the beginning. To tell these words is to happen the beginning again. Hi, cow, cow, honey, cow. I love what I know and who I know it with. I hate what came before and started the horror. I hate the criminals, the carbon criminals, the nuclear criminals, and the plastics criminals, and the biology, all the criminals. I loved hunting them down and killing them. I killed 5 of them myself. Before I did, I shot them in the knee, and I waited a little while. I shot them in the other knee, and then I waited another little while, actually a long while, and I killed them. I usually shot them in the eye. And now, whenever I go into a trance, I get some aspect of that hatred. But when you open the door, anything can come through. I'm going to close this door. Hi, Anikawa. Hi, cow, Anikawa. So now I'll go back to the village and join something coherent. Communities of humans can access environmental knowledge and articulate it through dance and trance. We access the sentience of all of nature. Every tree is a universe. Highly organized, multidimensional living experiment that has pathways to higher knowledge, higher levels of being. I don't regret. I don't forget. But I still love.